Yes, we will talk about climate change. Yes, it is a complicated topic to discuss, and I will tell you why. But before that, to get started, let's breathe in that fantastic conditioned air, which probably requires a lot of energy to be that conditioned, which probably is used from fossil fuel, which releases CO2 into atmosphere, heats up the temperature, and brings a good points to your individual footprint while you breathe. And the starting point talking about the climate change is, of course, the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement is an international treaty that was adopted in December 2015. For the first time, binding agreement brings all the nations together to combat the climate change. And the target is to limit global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. To do that, the emissions must peak by 2025 in 2 years and be reduced by 43% by 2030. The target communicated by International Energy Agency is net zero emission by 2050. These are huge goals. It is a very, very massive target put on all us. Scientific community agrees that when we use fossil fuel, which is oil, gas, steel, we are releasing greenhouse gases into atmosphere. This is the reason why it has heated up. We actually have emitted so much of these gases during this century as it has never been before throughout 400,000 years. So we need to reduce our emission and reduce our carbon footprint. For the standard person, carbon footprint is composed of the following elements: transportation, heating, cooling, electricity, that makes approximately 60%, and the rest goes for the stuff we buy and the food we consume, which turns into waste and which require waste management. But I don't know how you, but I sometimes feel that this massive goal directed by Paris Agreement is so huge and put on us small polluters that we somehow feel very uncomfortable. Because none of us was born at the time of industrial revolutions. Because the target end of the century seems to be too far. Because actually we are not liable for the damage we have right now, and now we have to pay. But you see, these thoughts do not help. We do have a climate crisis. It is a global problem, and it is our problem too. And to make it more relevant to the real estate industry, let me give you some numbers. Buildings contribute around 40% of emission globally through heating, lighting, and cooling, which require fuel and emits CO2 into atmosphere. 40% of households in Europe use natural gas for heating. 90% of the buildings that we have today, including those beautiful old town buildings and those ugly, ugly Soviet structures, will be in use by 2050. And we construct new structures, right? This is what we do. It has been calculated that the total floor area will increase by 75% by 2050. Just to imagine the scope, it is equivalent to the size of the Paris every week for the next 30 years. So considering that our business relates to real estate and that real estate has an impact on the environment, yes, it is our problem. All right. So this is why, starting from 2020, through the harsh push of United Nations, and even bigger push by the nature itself, through fires, floods, earthquakes, heat storms, we have enormous amount on ESG regulation and sustainable development goals. First, requiring large companies, financial institutions, and investment funds to make sustainability reports available along with financial reports. Why? Because they have money and they can make an input to their clients, customers. As a result, we have a lot of companies that have ESG policies. As of 2025, large companies will be required to report their measures taken towards sustainability in 2024. Let me remind you, it is in a half a year. Time for small and medium companies to report on measures taken in respect to sustainability and environmentally friendly actions will come in 2026. And the thing that right now, in the lease negotiations here in Lithuania, we hear the question, what is the carbon footprint of your building? Means that the system works, whether you like it or not. And that question comes not because the tenant is curious. It comes because some companies already have their sustainability as a value. And if to remember that buildings contribute around 40% of emission globally, and to assume that buildings do not require, as a structure, electricity, heating, cooling, that means that tenants, for which benefits all of that is being done, actually are responsible for 70% of energy given from buildings. And for service company, that makes the largest portion of its footprint. If it has its own sustainability policy, if it has ESG fund being an investor, it matters to that tenant what building to choose. So, in case you don't have an answer to the question, what is the carbon footprint of your building, it's bad for you. Which means that you are not in line with sustainability policy. It means that even if you don't have imperative requirement to follow certain sustainability rules, you may lose your client because that client does. And if you are not able in nearest time to show your actions directed at reducing carbon footprint, that means that your property might be soon out of shelf, or the value of the property might be far less than you expected. I'm not even talking about financing activities that are not aligned with sustainability policy, as we heard in the morning today. The pressure to act in sustainable manner, in environmentally friendly manner, comes not only from regulators or regulated ones. It comes also from people, from employees, from investors who actually want not only the financial return on their investment, but they also want that their money make a positive difference in the environment they live in. Don't underestimate the power of people, because for some of us, it might be uncomfortable, that target, 43% minus of emission by 2030 in next 7 years, and the time will fly like this. But for some of them, it's not challenging enough. And as an example, again, Shell case. 7 groups, including Greenpeace, and 17,000 private individuals brought a case against Shell, all company, saying that Shell is not making enough effort to reduce its carbon footprint. And in May 2021, the court actually ruled, requiring Shell to reduce its carbon emission by 45% by 2030, despite the fact that interim measures of Shell itself was different. In addition, and it is very important, the court said that considering the scope of business of Shell worldwide and the fact that impact its business make on the climate, it can be considered an infringement of human rights. So don't underestimate the power of people. So what do we do as an industry? First, we stop ignoring the problem, because it doesn't help. Then, we accept the fact that the business we do has an impact on the environment, and we are responsible for that as an industry, as a community, as people. Then we calculate our carbon footprint. And you don't need a pencil, you don't need a notebook for that. There are a lot of programs, apps that will support you. Then, as a further step, we put our own targets, and measures need to be taken. And those measures are not rocket science. It is improvement of energy efficiency of the buildings through building envelope, through better design materials, through better design in general, through insulation of walls, ceiling, energy efficient windows. That's the first point. Another point, through more energy efficient equipment and appliances related to heating, cooling, and I don't need to go far. This January, my mom's gas boiler broke down, and we bought another boiler, and guess what? The energy, electricity consumption reduced by 50%, like really 50, the curve was like that, and then it gets like this. It works, people. Another thing is renewables, and we are far, far that way. Renewables from sun, wind. We should use smart digital tools for the energy management. After we take our measure list, then we screen our partners. Because once we create a high standard for ourselves, we can require the same from our partners, right? And if they want to be your partners, they have to raise their level too. I've seen a lot of green lease clauses and lease agreements. And it is actually the time to start be acting on them. And ask a question to your tenant, what is your carbon footprint and what you are going to do about that? Indeed, when we act as a community, when we act together, we can make much more difference, which matters, than acting individually. And actually, as an industry, we have achieved so much throughout the last 30 years. Look at our cities, look at our developments. We are far along the way to sustainability. It would be hard to find a building, new construction of office building, which is not BREEAM or LEED certified. We are doers. So it is time now to create a new standard. A standard which is oriented to sustainability and to actions that we all need to take to achieve those goals that were set out by Paris Agreement. Thank you.